Hey there, Julia here. Here we are, the last 30 inks, 30 days. One more for the road. Today we are reviewing week 4's pen and ink pairings, scoring them, picking a favorite, and then choosing 2 new prompts at random here live. And then I'm going to swatch them, talk about the pens, and we're going to call it a challenge complete. As I've said before, this has been so fun. Super glad that you're enjoying it as well. This was an interesting week of pen and inks. The prompt for the pens was interesting nibs. So that was inlaid nibs, custom nib grinds, anything that was out of the usual. And then for inks, I had to choose from bottles only. So no samples, no ink swaps, no little Inkvent bottles. They had to be full-size bottles. So let's get into it. My transcription of the little prints continues here. The first pen and ink pairing was the Waterman Corinne paired up with Pelican Brilliant Brown. I have 0 complaints, as expected really, because the Waterman Corinne is just such a great pen, really comfortable, great for just straight up writing and journaling, I think. And this is my first time inking up Pelican Brilliant Brown. This ink has a whole lore. I ordered a bottle at some point and it was just super orange. I got it from Amazon, so I assume, kind of guessing, that the storage methods there just wasn't good for the ink. So the ink was really orange, like this lighter orange, I would even say. And so I sent it back and I ended up getting a bottle here locally from pen dealer Joel, and it was this brown. I liked it. I didn't ink it up in anything, but I did pretty much immediately include it in a meetup giveaway just because I had the box for it. It was full and I thought it would be a good gift. So I didn't get to use it. And then, full circle moment, a bottle of Brilliant Brown was bought to another meetup, and so I snatched it up and finally have it in a pen, and I enjoyed this so much. The shading is nice and subtle, like I like it. The flow was fantastic, and it was just a nice middle, still a little orangey, but just leaning more brown, but not like too dark where you can't tell that it's brown. I don't know. I thought it was like the perfect brown. So for the pen, I gave it a 4.5. The ink, I gave a 4, so that brings this total to 8.5. This was my wedding pen inked up with Amarillo Stationery's teal waistband. I mentioned last week that I would not be rating this one just because of sentimental bias and all of that. But I will say that it was a dream to write with. I love the Imperial grind on it. I mostly wrote with it on the writing side, so this like cursive smooth italic side, and again the ink is just a dream. I love, similar to this, like the shading is nice and subtle but apparent. It's a great teal that doesn't look too dark on the page, like you can tell that it's teal, and I really enjoy that. And it just flowed so well. So this was a beautiful match. I actually just left this inked up. It's on my desk. I plan on writing it dry. Here's our next page here. And wow, these look like they just meld into each other. That's so interesting. Let's start up here though. This is the Diplomat Excellence A2 with a Sankakusen grind on it. And it was inked with an ink from the 90s. It's Omas Amerigo Vespucci. And I really enjoyed this pen and ink combination more than I thought, actually, since this is like a brighter red, and I usually don't write with a bright red, but I don't know if you can tell, like, yes, this swatch is pretty bright, but in writing, it's a little more subdued, almost a rusty red orange type of color, and I just thought it was super great. Paired up with the Diplomat Excellence and that Sankakusen grind, I thought it was just perfect for a quick note. That pen has a snap cap, so it was just great for emphasizing things in notes. Like I was in a 2-day meeting and I would use this pen for just like little call outs and things, and I just thought it ended up looking really nice, and I just had a really good time with this pen and ink pair. So for the pen, I gave it a 4.5. For the ink, I gave it a 4. So we have another 8.5 here. Moving on to the Parker 50 Falcon. If you remember, that one has a really cool integrated nib. It is a vintage pen. And I inked that one up with Birmingham Pen Company's Nocturnal Lavender. I've nailed these first 3 pen and ink combinations, I will say, because this one was really great as well. I loved picking this pen up. Even with it being a little narrow, it was always comfortable to write with. It was probably the most enjoyable when transcribing the little prints here. In this exercise, I think I enjoyed the pen and ink pairing the most, this one. Love this ink for the same reasons as the other 2 as well. It does have some shading here, but it is more subtle, and the ink color is not so dark that you can't tell that it's purple, which is really nice. So I gave the pen in this case a 4. I gave the ink a 4, and so this one gets an 8. Moving on to the Leonardo Momento Zero with the horn colorway. This one has a really cool modified nib on it by Les from Stilo Sweet, and it's called this one in particular is the Extra Fine X-Wing Harpoon Nib. Such a cool nib. You get an extra fine line, but you also get really nice flex as well. And my thoughts on this, like I was very hyped about it last week, and I'm still really hyped about this nib in particular, but I will need to spend more time with it, I do believe, because as you can tell, let me get you in a little closer. As you can tell, there are strokes that are a bit darker than the rest of the writing, and that's just me putting just a little more pressure on the stroke. So we get a little bit of inconsistency in the writing when you have larger swaths of writing like this. I think it does look rather cool, but it just caught me off guard when I was writing, and so I was finding myself focusing so much on what was happening with these strokes rather than enjoying the writing experience and reading the book. So that is something. It's definitely more comfortable than a lot of other flex pens that I have when looking at regular writing, like everyday writing versus intentionally putting that flex down. So just something to note. The ink is super interesting because it definitely looks gray here, and you do get the gray in the writing as well, but throughout the week, we still have this like brownish tint to it. So that just may be a part of the ink properties. I was thinking that maybe I had dipped the pen at some point and that's why we were getting some brown and it would slowly like gradient out, but it never did. So I'm gonna assume that that is a part of the ink. So super interesting. There's this coppery quality to the gray as well. So for this combination, I gave the pen a 3.5, mostly because of these little inconsistencies in the writing. I gave the ink a 3.5 as well. Thought it was great. So overall, we have a 7. And then finally, we have the Pilot MYU 701. Super awesome integrated nib on that pen. It's very futuristic, but it's vintage. You can't really be mad at the pen. It's so cool. And I paired it with Diamine Ancient Copper. And if you remember, I paired it with Diamine Ancient Copper because it's a little bit more wet compared to the last ink that I had in that pen. And so I just wanted to experiment with having a wetter ink in the pen. And I really enjoyed it overall. I love how crisp the lines are. It is a fine on that MYU. And Ancient Copper really was an upgrade for the writing experience. Look at this cool sheen, like bronze sheen there. That's so cool. But I found that when writing this in particular, this is where I noticed it. Every now and again, my downstrokes, it was a little too frequent for me to be okay with. The downstrokes would just like not happen. I don't think that's a hard start. Maybe it was just dragging or something. And you can see possibly that like the L in children's a little bit darker. Some of the darker areas were me doing those lines 2 or 3 times to get them to come out of the pen. So I don't know what that's about. Something to investigate and explore. Maybe I need to get in between those times and see if there's any buildup there. But that did affect the writing experience. And so that was a little shocking and kind of bummed me out, not gonna lie. So for the pen, I gave it a 3. For the ink, I gave it a 3.5, giving this total a 6.5. So with that, you probably have come to the conclusion that there was a tie. This Diplomat A2 Excellence and the Waterman Corinne with Pelican Brilliant Brown. So with that, I held them up to each other. I wrote a little bit with both, just trying to break the tie with a gut feeling. And so I chose the Waterman Corinne with Pelican Brilliant Brown as the favorite for this month. And I think just what took it over the edge was the ink paired with it. It was just a little more versatile and I was using it more often. It was comfortable, all of the things. And so that's why I went with that pairing. And we've added it to our winner's circle here. And I decided to go ahead and write in the final scores for each of the month's weekly winners here. So yeah, definitely an interesting week working with unconventional pen and ink pairings. I think a lot of vintage things kind of thrown in, so that was really fun. And most of these actually traveled as well, and I didn't have any problem traveling with the vintage pens. Like I did take the Parker 50 Falcon with me, and that was great. And just overall, it was a pretty great week. So with that, let's choose our final pen and ink prompts. I will leave a PDF down in the description of all of the prompts, like exactly as I printed them and cut them out for these buckets if you want to do the same using the same prompts, because sadly we will not get to use all the prompts, but maybe I will bring these back later in the year for another fun time. Maybe not 30 inks, 30 days, but some other fun activity we can use these for. What if I did a whole currently inked for a month with these? Okay, for the pens, oh my gosh. For the pens, we have my first 6 pens acquired. That's so funny. Last challenge of the month, picking the first 6 pens that I got as a fountain pen enthusiast. The beginning of the rabbit hole. And then for the inks, oh my God, it's the thing of them sticking together. Inkvent only. Fun. All right, so we're dipping into the Inkvent bottles, which is always needed because there's so many of them. I'm trying to think, maybe only 2 years of Inkvent. I did 2023 and 2024. So I have quite a few of those. I'm also going to say, like, executive decision that the Colorvent calendar counts as well. I have a few samples from the Colorverse Colorvent calendar, and we'll let those be in play. And then I do have a database with all of my pens that I've made on Airtable with dates acquired, and I've been keeping up with all of that. So this should be easy to get together as far as this goes. So I'll be right back. I'll get them all together and show you what I've come up with. Okay, we are back at it, and I have my first 6 pens acquired that I still have. There is a couple of pens that I had to skip over because I've sold them, and we'll get into it. But First 6 pens acquired that I still own, and inks that are from the Inkvent. I didn't find any colorverse colors that really spoke to the pens, and so they're all Diamine Inkvent from the last 2 years. And we're just gonna go in order of the pens. So the first pen, my first fountain pen, came to me in a pen club subscription box that doesn't exist anymore from Papercraft Pantry. There were also some really neat gel pens that I got in the couple of months. I think 2 or 3 months I was in it before it dissolved, but some gel pens, some ballpoint pens, some cool little dot highlighters. There's some cool stuff in this monthly box. And I think in one of the last ones or the next to the last one, they sent a Kaweco Sport. This one, the iridescent Sport from 2022, and I'm pretty sure I got it in the summer of 2022. And it has a medium nib, and I remember having the blue cartridge in it. And though I've tried fountain pens before, I don't think they were true fountain pens. I think they were mostly like dip pens and things like that. So I was very unsure about this nib, how to make it right. I'm sure I was turning it all kinds of crazy ways, but with this pen, it just stuck, and I loved how juicy the writing experience was and how just lovely the ink flowed. And so this pen started it all for me. Like I said, it's the Kaweco Sport in the iridescent pearl color. It has a medium nib on it, and I inked it up with, from the 2024 Inkvent. I'm going to try my best to remember which years these come from. I feel like I'm pretty good with keeping them straight so far, but this could be a brain tease. But it does have some shimmer in it. Yeah, it's called Baltic Breeze. I'm pretty sure it was day 1 of the 2024 Inkvent. And I haven't put this in a pen yet, so I'm also curious how this is going to perform. As you can see, it is a lilac-y blue. I just thought it kind of fit the color quality of this iridescent color. Do I have my blotter paper? Let's do that. I think it's called Iridescent Pearl. I'm not sure. Medium nib. Yeah, I'm really liking the flow with this, even just those 2 lines. So should be interesting. Okay, my next fountain pen that I acquired, I actually don't have anymore. It is the TWSBI Eco in the transparent purple with a broad nib. And if I have any footage of it, I will stick it here. But I got this pen secondhand on, I think, a Facebook buy-sell trade group. It had a broad nib, and I did not understand nib sizes yet. And so I just got it because it was purple. And, you know, it's a lower price point, something new to try out. Got it. I thought it was great, other than like, whoa, broad nib. So I ended up selling it a couple of years later because by that point I had a better grasp on the different nib sizes, both line size and the actual nib size, number 6, number 5, that type of thing. So I don't have that one. The next pen that I acquired was this Esterbrook Estie. It is not an Esterbrook Estie. This is the Esterbrook JR in the Fantasia color. I got this from a small little gift shop in Santa Fe, and I just was mesmerized by all of the pretty sparkle, and I thought it would be a nice addition to my couple of pens. So from the Inkvent, I decided to ink this up with Cosmic Glow, which is from the 2024 Inkvent calendar as well. This one is an extreme sheener, or as I like to call them, sheen queens. Very, very saturated ink here. With a very intense purpley, if I remember right, like a reddish purple sheen. And you can see as I'm working this swatch, there's not a lot of color variation here, so I don't expect a lot of shading. Like here you can see there's some lights, some darks with different amounts of ink kind of pressed into the page. You don't get that as much really at all here. And this pen originally had a medium nib. It's been through it really. The feed had to get replaced at one point, but this has the Imperial grind by Kirk Spear on it. This was actually the first Imperial grind that I got. At least one of my first custom grinds was on this pen. They have since re-released this color. I'm not sure if it's still available on the Esterbrook site, but if it is, I will leave links as always down in the description for you. But this is the first run of this color. Beautiful flow, super saturated. This is great. And if you remember, on the reverse side of an Imperial, you do get kind of a broader monoline. Gorgeous. And a fun match. I mean, this looks like a starry sky. This is called Cosmic Glow. Just fun. The next pen that I acquired was the Lamy Safari in the cream color. This was also a 2022 edition, like their color of the year type deal, and I got this in a super awesome little stationery and pen shop in Albuquerque called Penny Smith Paper. They are super nice there, and she helped me out with this. And I remember when I got this pen, her asking me if I wanted a converter for it, and I had no idea what a converter was, and I was scared to even like get into it because I had already had her switch the nib on it, which in retrospect, like not a big deal that she switched the nib for me because super easy switch, but I was just like, oh my gosh, no, I don't need a converter because I didn't know what a converter was and whatever. So I ended up going home, looking up what a converter was and ordering a converter. So anyways, this is the Lamy Safari in the cream colorway. I inked this up with Diamine Wilted Rose, which is also from the 2024 Inkvent calendar. This one is a standard kind of dusty red color. Yeah, we get a lot of variation in this as well as far as the light and dark, so I feel like this is going to be a little more watery. It's going to give us a little bit more shading property. Yes, and this has a medium nib. This is not the original medium nib that was on it. It came with the like silver traditional Lamy Safari nib, but I like the black coated nibs better, and so we do have a medium nib on here, but it is black coated. I find those to glide a little bit better on the page. It is like a really nice, I said dusty red, yes, but it is almost like a pinkish brown as well. Next in my pen acquiring journey, I kind of went back to the Kaweco Sport. I was still really loving the iridescent pearl, the writing experience, but now that I knew a little bit more about nib sizes, I wanted to try out the Kaweco Sport with a finer nib. And so I grabbed this Kaweco Sport. This is the dark olive color, and I think this is the one that came out in 2021. And I got this one with a fine nib. And I decided to ink this one up with, oh geez, another one from the 2024 Inkvent calendar. This ink is called Wishing Tree. It does have some shimmer in here. And this ink is actually on my inks to try in 2025 list. So I'm knocking out 2 birds, 1 stone here with this selection. It's a really gorgeous shade. Yes, it does have some olive in there, but there's also some grayish tones in here as well. And a shimmer that kind of transitions, I don't know if we'll get it here, from a green to a red there we go. I'll show you a little later, but it does transition from green to red. Such great nibs on these pens. Lovely. I think that's a lovely match as well. Look how crazy the sheen is. Hopefully that's not super annoying to you. Okay, next up was my first gifted fountain pen. Also, the start of something crazy. This is the Esterbrook Estie, my very first Esterbrook Estie in the Peacock colorway, gifted by my husband. He got this up in Santa Fe while we were at a conference, and this, you don't see this color very often these days, but I love it. It's so fun and festive. So this one originally came with a medium nib. Right now I have it installed with a fine nib just for some variation for this week. I went for a darker pairing here and went with 2023's last day, their 25th day because it's a full bottle. It is Diamine Raise a Glass, which is a super dark purple with some purpley rose gold shimmer. And if I remember correctly, this one is pretty saturated as well, so we won't see too much variation in the swatch. We do get a little bit in here, but it does get really dark. So it's just a little harder to discern, I think, what's going on here. They're so blue, what happened? There we go, so super dark purple there. Still a match, but just not as spot on. Okay, the next fountain pen that I acquired, technically I still have, but I'm not inking it up for this week. It is the Jinhao 100, the Centennial in the colorful color. And the reason I'm not inking this up for this week is because I use this pen for nib grinds. I have quite a few Jinhao nibs that I practice on, and this pen has been through it. I've dropped it, and this back finial has just come off, and so it's like glued here, and it's just not in play as a day-to-day pen right now. It's just one that I use for education, for learning, for experimenting. But technically, this was the next pen that I purchased. The next one that I got, I have inked up, and I sing the praises of this pen all the time. And so I got this Pilot Kakuno or Kakuno, all clear. So my first kind of like dip into the demonstrator world, being able to see the ink and the inner workings of a pen, which I also think is really important for beginners, just to understand what is happening inside of the pen. And so we have the Pilot Kakuno, and I have this inked up with Nutmeg, which was another favorite from the 2024 Inkvent calendar. You can see we have some shimmer here. It is a very grayish brown color. This is so fun. This is kind of like going down memory lane, and I feel like having all of these pens inked up this week is just going to be really nostalgic, and just thinking about the beginning of my fountain pen journey. Because there was a time that these were all the pens that I had. And there's so many great writers here. This is going to be a great week. I'm really enjoying the quality of color and just the flow of this ink so far, just even writing this little bit. So that is something. Gorgeous. Wow. Fun. Let's let this dry and update the last row of the grid. And then I'll do like a super fun short or reel or whatever of me peeling off of this tape. Super satisfying. And we'll get a look at all of the inks from this month. So we started off with Diamine Baltic Breeze, Diamine Cosmic Glow, Diamine Wilted Rose, Diamine Wishing Tree, Diamine Raise a Glass, and Diamine Nutmeg. All right, we should be all dried up to take a look at the final week of 30 Inks 30 Days, featuring my first 6 pens. So we have the Kaweco Sport and Iridescent Pearl, inked up with Diamine Baltic Breeze, the Esterbrook JR in the Fantasia colorway with an imperial nib, inked up with Diamine Cosmic Glow, the Lamy Safari in Cream medium nib, inked up with Diamine Wilted Rose, another Kaweco Sport in the dark olive, inked up with Diamine Wishing Tree. And I'm determined for you to see this chameleon. Oh my gosh, why? I'm looking at it right now. It's got to be like the angle. Yeah, so there is red shimmer here, but it's green when the light hits it straight on. Oh, so annoying to get you to see that. Okay, so we have that one. We have Esterbrook Estie in the Peacock color, inked up with Diamine Raise a Glass. Actually love the sheen here. I doubt we'll get it in the writing as much, but how the sheen matches as well. Super cool. And then we have the lovely Pilot Kakuno, inked up with Diamine Nutmeg. So there we have it. Our 30 Inks 30 Days comes to a conclusion. Kinda. I will let you guys know how this week goes in my June currently inked video, which should be happening next week if all goes well. So we'll still do a review on these and wrap it all up before going into June currently inked. But what a fun way to end this with the first 6 pens that I acquired. How cool. Let me know what you think here. Let me know your prediction for which pen and ink pairing do you think will enter the winner's circle. I actually don't know what I'm doing with the winner's circle. Am I picking a favorite out of those? I don't know. I'll just have the winner's circle there. Possibly, I have no idea. Did not plan that far ahead. But I appreciate all the kind words with this series. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed for more pen and ink fun. As always, thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate it, especially when you make it to this point. I'll see you in the comments. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching.